Hi, hello. You might know me from videos such as opening cool Pokemon cards and opening rare Yu-Gi-Oh cards. Yeah, I did a couple of those over the course of the past couple years, but today we're doing a BGS return video. I don't know why I'm doing that intro. Look, man, it's been a while, so I'm just trying to get back into it. So I have a very interesting BGS review video, and I kind of want to talk about just graded cards in general. So this is going to be kind of like a half reveal, half opinion-based thing, which means I'm dropping an opinion, which means a lot of people will disagree, a lot of people will agree, and it'll create just, I don't know, argument. But that's not what we're trying to do. You know, I like to have conversation. I like to fuel conversation for the sake of having conversation to see where everybody stands and is in certain things, especially in a collectible world, something I'm super passionate about. So we'll get to the opinion piece later. First, let's look at these. As you can see, something black labeled, and it's another Yu-Gi-Oh card. If you follow me on social media, you know exactly what this is. The reason why I already know what this is because I'll be real. I sent two different submissions. They each had 3 cards apiece, and I didn't think anything was going to cross in these. So when I opened the first batch and I realized what came back, well, you'll see when we get to it. So let's first talk about the ones that did not get approved or bumped up. So as you guys know, you can review cards. Every grading company does this. You can just straight send the slab in, and in case they made an error or sometimes graded too harshly, they'll look at the card and be like, yeah, that should be a higher grade or whatever. And if they don't think it should be a higher grade, you usually get the slab back. It's kind of, honestly, it's a way for graded companies to get more money. That's what it is. I'm gonna be real with you. And BGS is notorious for it because they have their gold slabs, and a lot of times they'll give a card a 10, which is a 10, 10, 10, and 9.5, and they'll pick 1 to 4 subgrades to just not bump up the 10s because I think they just don't want to give out 10s. You know, every graded company does forms of pop control, and I think BGS does this a lot. Although I will say this, BGS gets the most credit in regards to how well they grade their cards, and we'll talk about that also in this video. So first one, we have this is the Animation Chronicles Blue Eyes that I bought while I was in Japan. I think I paid like 400 bucks for this, and the only reason why I bought it is because, one, I wanted to get something, you know, like a memento of that trip, and when I saw this and for the price that was available at the time, I'm like, this is a good deal. And I figured, hey, maybe we can bump this up as well. I mean, I looked at the card and I didn't think that it would get bumped because the thing about BGS, unlike other grading companies, is they're actually way more accurate when they give a card a 10. And in this case, we got 9.5, 9.5, 10, 10. It's 0.5 away from a 10. Can they bump it up? And the answer is no, because they said the centering is off from left to right. And on the back, there is a ding. So something I like about the reviews, which I feel like should be included with grades to begin with, is this. But the reason why they probably don't do that is because they want you to grade again. But it's a whole nother discussion. So if we look at the back, I see what they're talking about. It's very slight. And you might debate that. And this is where I feel like it should have been a 10. Because look, it says the centering is off. It's weighed towards the right. But if you look at the centering, if you zoom in, that is as good as it gets. However, the reason why they didn't bump it is I feel like because if there's any form of blemishes on a card that are obvious to the naked eye, for example, like this corner, they're not going to bump this up. So they're not going to bump the center to a 10 and then, you know, leave it as 10, 10, 10, 9.5, making a card a pristine 10. I think that's why they do it. If it didn't have that bump in the corner, it probably would have given the corners a 10 and then kept it like this. But I don't know. I just feel like the centering of this card is fantastic. And if you put it in Photoshop and zoom all the way in, it'll be at least 55, 45 in regards to like how much it might be shifted. But I feel like it's good enough to be, you know, like a 10. But I don't know. I didn't expect something to cross. This is one where I was like, let's just see what happens. And yeah. Then we have quintuplets. We have, which one is this? This is Nino. This is the one that I pulled out of my case. I was hoping to get Itsuki, but Nino's actually great, but it's because I love the artwork on this. You know, the movie SSPs were fantastic with the art. And they said that it was shifted on to the right from the front. I'll be honest, I don't really know how they do the grades for centering for some of these Weiss cards. I know a lot of times they measure the wings, which are on the bottom usually, but they don't have these. So for example, these wings. Here's an Itsuki from the original set. They measured these wings right here. Wow, that looked actually very dusty. But yeah, I don't know how they do it. So this is apparently weighed to the right, and on the back there is a singular dot dead center in the middle. Now, normally you could see these, and when they pointed out, you could see what dot we're talking about. I do not see such dot. I feel like if I sent this card in again, maybe y'all be able to see it. It will become a 10 next time. Because I know a lot of times with some of these Weiss cards, when there's like a dot or something in the back, it's very visible just because like it'll literally just say like a white dot sticking out. So I don't know if I agree with this one. Centering, sure, you could have kept that as a 9.5, but the surface effect should have been bumped up to a 10 because I do not see any dot in the back. And if it would be a print line, they would actually draw like a line over here. So this one is a big mystery here. Now this is interesting because now we have the Itsuki. I bought this actually on from a seller, and like I bought this like literally when the card came out, and I immediately submitted it. And this one got 10-10, 9.5, 9.5 originally. And on the first review, they denied it and saying that, and this is where it gets interesting. Look, check it out, check it out. This is my problem with Beckett sometimes. And why I submit reviews multiple times, which we'll get to here in a second, because this was a multiple submission. So right here it says, the centering is off on the front, similar to the Nino. And again, I don't really see that because the centering looks great for these. Because the thing about Weiss cards and something I really love about them is that they're super high quality. Really, really good print quality. So let me get this straight. It's centered on the right, and on the back there's nothing. But they dinged it for surface and centering. So where is the surface error? Becca, yeah, I got some explaining to do, man. If you're gonna tell me, at least put a dot on this card like y'all did with the Nino. Make it make sense. And by the way, I bought a 10 because it popped up. Like, bro, this. Let's compare it. This centering to a T looks the same to me. You could probably pause this, and if someone wants to toss it in Photoshop, compare the two. This to a T looks the same to me. I don't know. I'm just saying, like, it's a little bit sus. By the way, shout out to Miku as well, which I bought. I love the SSPR for the quintuplets in the third set that came out. And this is a good deal. I couldn't say no to this. I bought this because I had reason to believe that these were just gonna come back as 9.5s. And based on this, I guarantee you. Actually, I might do an experiment. I'm gonna waste a little bit more money. Becca's gonna win right now. I'm gonna resubmit both the Nino and the Itsuki to see what happens. Because again, if they at least included what was wrong, that's one thing. But they literally didn't. They said this deserves the centering that it got, but what about the surface error? Where's the dots? Where's the error? Like, come on. Plot twist. They mixed it up and there's a dot. No, there's no dot. There's no dot. This looks great. This looks great. Okay, now we're going to get into the second batch. So nothing crossed in this batch of 3. What I usually like to do, because I'm skeptical, whenever I submit stuff to grading companies for reviews, I'll always do a small batch because I feel like if you send like 10 cards, they're gonna do like 1 and then just call it a day and return everything else because they didn't know you're gonna resubmit it. So I always do like no more than 2 or 3 cards to see what happens. But this time that theory was proven wrong because they sent these 3 back. They could have easily been like, yeah, these are 10s, and then, you know, left the Blue Eyes alone because Blue Eyes is an iconic card. Okay, so now we have the Yu-Gi-Oh cards, and as I mentioned, one crosses a black label, which we'll get to here in a second. So the first one, we have the Dark Magician Girl that I got in Japan. This is a Pop 2. This is the Prismatic set. If you guys don't know anything about this, in 2001 in the Dungeon Dice Monster game, you were able to get 3 cards. It came with 3 different rarities, and so you would get this one, the green one, the pink one, and then the blue one. And they all either came in Ultra Rare, Ultimate Rare, or the Prismatic ones. I love the Prismatic just because it shines so well. And I was pursuing this card for the longest in the best quality. You know, like PSA 10, sure. Great, but like BGS 10 means it's absolutely flawless. So here's my issue with PSA. We're gonna knock PSA for a second. So right here we have a Ultimate Rare, also dusty, that I bought a couple of weeks ago. You know, and I mean, PSA says it's a 10. It's a perfect condition card, right? Wrong. Let's look at the back. You see that one ding right off the bat? When I bought this from eBay, the first thing I see is that ding. Now PSA, what they do is they always say a card can have like some imperfections. Because let's be real, at the end of the day, there's no such thing as a perfect card. Just because, like, if everything else is perfect, like if the centering, edges, surface is a 10, but then they see like one small ding, they're like, yeah, it's like a 9.59. If you do the math, it averages out to a 10 because there's no 9.5s to PSA. I mean, PSA would probably say 9.5 if they had that here, but they don't, so therefore it gets rounded up to a 10. So one thing I like about BGS over PSA is the fact that they keep it way more real. Sometimes they keep it too real because, like I said, I don't see the dot that they said that this card had. But getting the perfect card for this was not easy. Like I said, this is a pop 2 in BGS. In PSA, the pop is still pretty low, but almost every single one of them I've seen has had some kind of issue. Usually, it's always a corner. I mean, Yu-Gi-Oh cards for corners are always crazy. And the thing about this one, when I found this one in person while I was in Japan back in April, and when I tell you I went from store to store and shop to shop, I hunted this down. This is the first one I've ever seen that was like really, really good. And I've never seen the other one that was graded a 10 by BGS. I'm sure it's just as good. But anyways, they said that this is centered from top to bottom. Now, again, it's a bit more, I feel like if I send this in by itself, they'll probably bump up the black label, but like I don't see how this is off center. I mean, cards like this can't really be off center. Now, if we look at a Pokemon card, which I don't have, I do have one actually. It's actually in the BGS lab as well. But Pokemon Go is telling something's off center just because like you'll see the border around that. Like you can tell that this card actually got 9.5 centering and is actually very good, so I can't really show you. But like if a Pokemon card is off center, you could tell. Because like you could see that one side of the yellow border will be heavily weighed. But in this situation, you can't really tell. On top of that, the back looks perfect. So it's like, what are we basing this off of? Like, what is perfect centering for this card? Where does that data come from? That's what I want to know. Like, because there's no, like, you know, image that exists of this card before it's printed that they can just look up. So, like, are they basing this off of how the other 10 looks? Which, by the way, the other 10 also had a 9.5 centering, so it can't be that. So it's like, how is that decided? I don't know. I'm going to experiment and send this in to get reviewed at some point again to see if we can get bumped to the black label. But if I don't, hey, this is still cool. So yeah, I'm excited about that. The next one I knew had 0 chance of crossing. But again, I was just doing an experiment because I want to see what happens. I set an unlimited Magician's Force Dark Magician Girl. And here they actually gave us a lot of data. But again, my problem is it doesn't match everything else. If I review a card, and again, I'm talking to Becca right now. I don't know if anyone from Becca is going to see this video, but if I review a card and you give it 9.5, 9.5, 9.5, 9.5, you got to tell me where that is. It only makes sense. I mean, what am I paying you for? Why am I paying you to review a card and you do half the job? Like, make it make sense. Now, I do have an interesting situation with this card. So, I actually sent this in to get reviewed back in April. Because originally the grade for this card used to be 9, 9.5. Hold on, losing focus. It was 9, 9.5, 9.5, 9.5. And usually when you have a card that has a non, it has 0 chance of ever crossing to a 10. Because there's some kind of imperfection that's 9 worthy. So, I sent this in originally with a minimum grade of 10. If they was to review it and say, yeah, it's good enough. And they didn't give it a 10. However, they still upgraded it. Because this card came back, remember, I sent this in as a 9, 9.5, 9.5, 9.5. It came back at 9.5 quad, which means it's close to a 10. If PSA graded this will be 100% a 10. Now, let's see what the notes say. And again, this is my big issue with not just BGS, but grading companies that all do this. So it says there is, first of all, this only gives me 2 issues. It says there's a ding in the middle, which I assume is probably on the edge, because if you look at the middle on the back, that's a little fuzzy. Don't worry about that. There is nothing, if we can focus, because it's actually focusing on the glare. There's nothing in the middle that's referring to. So I don't understand where that's coming from. Now, if you look at the top of the card, it looks like an extra, like, you see that? It's like it's very, very hard to see because, like, again, my camera is not good. It looks like it's an extra piece of like cardboard, but it's not really an imperfection. It's not like a dot, it's not like a dent, so whatever. But hey, if they see it, it's gotta be there, right? Okay, so that's why the edge is a 9.5. Okay. Then it says the back has a ding in the corner. This is a standard Yu-Gi-Oh corner, so yeah, I do agree. I do see it. Explains why the corner is a 9.5. But what about the surface and the centering? It didn't say anything about those. Can this camera stay focused for more than 3 seconds? Good God. See, I only got 2 of the 4 subgrades. So in theory, shouldn't this be a centering 10 and a surface 10? Now, as I mentioned, whenever I send cards in for review, I like to send small batches because I feel like you have this is just my own headcanon story, but I feel like you have a better chance of something crossing. 1 card crossed, and it was quite a monstrous card that I immediately had to put it in one of these Phantom cases. We have the black label Magician's Force. Oh, not Magician's Force, sorry. Magnificent Mavens. Pharaoh Rare, Dark Magician Girl. This is a pop 1 now. Prior to that, it was a pop 3 and a 10. So there's 3 10s. Yeah, actually, it was pop 4. There's 3 10s of this. And then now there's the 1 black label. It's not a second black label Dark Magician Girl that exists. And I own the other one, which is the Prismatic 10 one that I got a couple months ago. I'm excited. I mean, this was a very difficult card to get in the set just because there were like 24 or something like that Pharaoh Rares in the set. And the Pharaoh Rare rates were actually really, really low compared to the average like hit of a box. You can buy a whole case and get like, it was like 1 or 2 amongst the 24, 25 that existed. So this was a very challenging card to get. But one of the most beautiful rarities that Konami has released in their TCG in a very long time since Starlight. I love it. You know, you get the little hieroglyphic patterns in the background and then the iconic Dark Magician Girl art. This might be my most favorite card that I own. But hey, this was actually reviewed twice. And both times they said no. Actually, even before that, because I actually bought this from my homie CT, Agent DMG. And I know that he submitted it for review before and they turned it down. But again, I'm sure it was the same situation where they sent one of these in and they're missing information on it. Like, oh yeah, here's one thing, but like they won't address the other stuff. I don't know. Which that brings the question to, what is the right company to grade with? You know, what is a grade? This is, we're gonna get controversial for a second. This might be kind of a long video. Well, I'll try to like, you know, wrap it up so it's not like super crazy long. My issue with grading right now is a lot of times people will buy a card just for the number that's written on top. Now, I will say this. BGS is the most accurate by far that I've seen. When they say a card is a BGS 10, or a black label in this case, from what I've seen, in my personal experience, I have never seen a 10 where it's like, yo, what happened here? Whereas we literally have this collector rare Dark Magician Girl Knight that has that ding in the corner. Like, what happened here? Like, so what is the right company to grade? You know, the joke that we have in the Weiss Schwartz community is if it's PSA graded, it's for a reason. Because if BGS had it, it was probably like a 9.5. And PSA sometimes, like I said, they'll round the 9.5s up because it is a 9.5. And they'll give cards a 10 in a much easier way. I mean, honestly, when I originally got this card, this and the pink version of this, they both graded 9.5s with BGS. And when I sent it to get reviewed by PSA, the pink one actually crossed to a 10 in PSA, but in BGS was a 9.5. And they left this one as is. Although I feel like if I was to crack this out and submit it to PSA, they probably would give it a 10. The only reason why they didn't want to cross this one over is because, as you can see, they gave the surface a 9 here. And PSA probably decided, and they're like, yeah, we're not going to cross that, despite it being 9.5, 9.5, 10, and 10. Or 9. But I guarantee if I crack this out, now I'm an experiment. If I crack this out and send this to PSA raw, I bet you it's going to come back at 10. But anyways, honestly, grading companies, it just comes down to what you prefer, you know? I prefer BGS just because I feel like a lot of times when they say a card is a 10, it is an actual 10. It is definitely a 10. I have never really seen BGS miss that much. But again, I might be wrong. This is a person-to-person experience. A lot of you guys might have had situations where you got a card or saw a card that said 10 and was like, yo, what happened here? So, I don't know. But what I don't like is a lot of times people are buying a card just for the number on top, when in all reality, that's not the case at all. For example, a couple weeks ago, I saw a PSA 10 Dark Magician Girl sell on eBay. That was the cleanest Magician's Force copy I've ever seen in my life. I lost that bid. I was like fighting to win that one. I wanted it. And out of all the Magician's Force Dark Magician Girls that I've seen, it is by far the best one I've ever seen. And I think I ended up selling for like 12 grand with the conversion. It was in Great British Pounds. Then the same card was listed not even 2-3 weeks later, also PSA 10, and a recent grade 2, it was like a 7 million cert. But the card looked awful. It was, if BGS saw that card, they probably would have graded a 9, just because the name was literally like, it had scratches across. Like, what happened? So, my problem is, and by the way, that card ended up selling for like 10 grand as well. So I'm like, did people look at the card? Are people only buying this card because they see the number on top, or what? Well, like, what's going on? You know, something we see a lot with Lugia. You know, Lugia sold for $144,000 as a BGS 10 a couple of years ago, and then $129,000 for PSA 10. And I will admit, both of those look very, very clean. But I've also seen Lugia sell for like 70 grand and 50 grand, and they did not look like 10s. I feel like the reason why they sold, it's not because the price dropped, but they sold for those prices because, number one, nobody else was going to spend that kind of money for it to look like a 9.5 or a 9. And on top of that, it was more like a under the table, people weren't really paying attention kind of deal versus, you know, being on like a like an auction type of thing. And right now we're seeing actually with CGC. I actually have a couple of 9.5 CGC cards that I sent in to get reslabbed, because you guys know CGC took the 9.5 system away, and now every 9.5 you had is a 10. And with it, I actually had a BGS 9.5 Lugia that's now a 10. But when I get it in a couple of days, you're gonna see it has a massive. Actually, it's on the same level as this. It's the same. You see this print line right here? This gigantic one. That CGC 10 that I have now has the exact same print line, and actually has like a little vertical line off his toes as well. So it goes across and top to bottom. It's a horrible print line. And I remember when I first bought it, you know, a couple of like a year ago, I was like, well, it's a 9.5. You know, everything else looked great. Like the centering was great, edges, corners were fantastic. The only issues that that card had was that giant print line. I would not give him that card at 9.5, but now because of the new grade system, it's a 10. And I've seen Lugia's, it's an unlimited, by the way, not the first edition version. I've seen an unlimited CGC 10 recently sell for almost $3,000. So now, does that mean if I was to list that card, it would sell for like $3,000 as well, even though it's not 10, but it says 10? Don't worry, I'm not gonna do that. I don't ever do stuff like that, just because I'd rather not sell you a card just because it has a number on top. But yeah, grading is an interesting place for me. I think one of the reasons why I've been preferring BGS so much over the other companies out there is because I feel like they've been a lot more accurate. Like, people will always complain that they get a bad grade in BGS, but it's not that you got a bad grade, you got an accurate grade. And at the end of the day, a lot of people just prefer seeing that 10 at the top, no matter what the graded company is. If PSA says no, CGC will say yes. If CGC says no, all the other random companies that, you know, might not be as big might give you a 10 just because they think it's a 10. And now all of a sudden it's a perfect card, despite you see a giant print line or a ding in the corner, and yada yada, blah 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 blah. But yeah, I don't know, let me know your thoughts. You know, I feel like this is a discussion that we tend to ignore in the card community a lot. Are you buying the card because of the grade, or are you buying the card for the card? I just like having a card that I know is in great condition, like the best flawless condition you can get, because you know a certain amount exists, which is another problem I have with BGS. For the love of God, BGS, you are a graded company. There's no reason why I should look up a card and it says no records found. For example, I want you guys to comment down below what you see here. Go to the Beckett website and type in this code, and let me know what the records say. But a lot of cards in the Beckett's record system is not there. It doesn't exist. Are you a graded company that doesn't keep track of your card? For the most part, they do. Like, a lot of these cards are there. All of the ones that I have here are in their system. This one is not. My all-time favorite one was, I remember I was in Japan, and there's a card that my girlfriend graded a 10. It was a 10, right? We bought the card raw in Japan. We set it in, it came back at 10. Great. While I was in Japan, the second time, I was just looking on eBay, and I see the card listed, and I'm like, did we get robbed? My immediate thought was, how is a Pop 1 card being sold on eBay? Even in the description said Pop 1. And I looked at it and I realized it was a second card. So I immediately went into my account and looked up the card that we have, and it still said Pop 1. And if you look up her serial number, it said card not found. What happened? Look, BGS, I love you. But what you guys need to do is sort your record system out. Because I know you have it out there somewhere. You know, you obviously got to write these numbers down. But like, there's no, matter of fact, even if you look up this, so they have a whole database for the Dungeon Dice cards, but if you look up this specific number, it doesn't exist. I don't know what happened. They have some kind of typo in here somewhere that made it so this card is not in the system. Don't know why. But if you look up the Dungeon Dice list, you'll see it'll say BGS 10 for 2 of the green ones, which is one of the 2 that I have this one over here. Plot twist is that there actually is 3, and they just never added mine. I don't know. I wouldn't be surprised. So yeah, I think that's my biggest issue with all 3 companies, like the main ones. You know, BGS, their record system sucks. They really need to figure that out. And their service is very, very. They have the worst service. I'll say that. You know, between them receiving the cards, you get in the back, you have no idea what's happening. Despite there even being a thing that tracks it, you have no idea what's happening. PSA, for as big as they are way too inaccurate sometimes, and that's an issue. And then CGC, I mean, like I said, CGC, I own a CG10 Lugia that has a giant set of print lines in the middle, because that's the new grading system. I don't know. Anyway, so let me know your thoughts on grading overall and what you think. I know some people just prefer not to grade and just like to have the card and throw it in a binder, which is perfectly okay as well. Like I said, the thing that attracts me to grading the most is the fact that they get slabbed up permanently in here where they can't really get damaged. Well, air quotes. You can always drop it, crush it, and stuff like that. But for the most part, it preserves the card pretty well. And my favorite thing is you can see how many exist. Like, that's the main aspect of grading. It's like, if it says there's 110, you know there's 110. And down the line, I can look up the serial number again and see if more got graded, and it shows you. I like that. I like seeing how many perfect condition cards exist for a specific card that you own, which you obviously can't do with, you know, cards and binders unless they're like trophy cards and stuff like that. But yeah. Anyways, good news, like I said. There's now 2 Black Label Dark Magician girls, and probably one of the coolest ones I could have gotten. My next goal, honestly, and I'm gonna try to do this, is to find the Ghost Rare. If they had the original print, I'd be way more excited about this. But if I can get a Ghost Rare BGS 10 of this, like, my trilogy is complete at that point. I'm not even gonna try to bother trying to get like a Magician's Force 10 because print quality back then used to be so bad, so it's like next to impossible. I'll just settle for my 9.5 unlimited version that I have over here that, you know, has a ding in the corner and then something on top, but the centering and edges is fine, I guess. This is good enough for me. Like I said, I'm not buying the card for the grade. I'm buying the card for the card. At the end of the day, that's always what's going to be for me. Not that there's any wrong way to collect. Even if you are only buying cards for value and investing, that's perfectly fine. Because at the end of the day, you're still collecting. It brings you some kind of passion, and that's all that matters. Yeah. Anyways, let me know your thoughts down below. Like I said, very, very cool that we got this. And hopefully, we'll be back a lot sooner than later, like I always say on this channel. I will say this. I have 2 sets of PSA returns for the first time in a year at PSA right now. So let's see how those go. But as far as the other ones, I'm going to resubmit some of these to see what happens and see if the grade will change. I mean, end of the day, you know, reviewing a card is like having a card graded. You know, one reviewer might look at a card differently than another one. And like I said, my only issue with this card is it literally is missing data. Like, it says there's a dot on the middle, but there's not. I don't see one. And this one only got the centering on the review. So it's like, where's the surface issue that the card mentions? Like, you gotta include all that information. But yeah. Anyways, hope you enjoyed. And I guess I'll see you guys in the comments of this video.